Welcome to another episode of Read, Return, Repeat, a Read ICT podcast.
We know we said that our next episode would be about Category 6, a book about mythology or folk tales, but you'll have to wait until next month for that one, because today we're celebrating rereading our favorite books, which is also Category 7.
What is so special about this category is that it gets to the heart of the Read ICT Reading Challenge. According to Pew Institute study, a quarter of adults have not read a book in any format in the last year.
Reading is incredibly important. It gives us the chance to view the world through the eyes of characters from diverse backgrounds and experience places of the world we might not otherwise have the chance to experience. So today, we're going to celebrate our whole Read ICT community, our library staff, and our shared love of reading.
Our guest today is Wichita Public Library Director Jaime Prothro, and we're going to hear from our staff on which books they love to read over again.
I am jazzed about today's episode. Can you tell? It's like a party, but in a podcast.
Or not. I'm Daniel Pee-wee Ward.
And I'm Sarah Dixon. And before we welcome Jaime, let's hear from a couple of our staff members on what books they love to reread.
Hi, my name is Lena. I'm a youth services librarian at the Alfred and Walters branches. My favorite book to reread is Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo because the characters and setting are fascinating, and I catch something new each time I read or listen to it.
I'm Colleen. I'm a senior library assistant at the Rockwell branch. I'm currently rereading Lincoln by David Herbert Donald. Considered one of the best single-volume biographies on Abraham Lincoln, what I like best about this book is Donald's straightforward and very human portrayal of Lincoln. It is Lincoln with the myth stripped away.
Thanks, Jaime, for joining us. This is going to be so fun. We're excited to interview you. So let's get started. Can you tell us a little bit about your background and your journey to becoming a library director?
I never thought that I would be a library director. Just start with that. I started working in public libraries when I was 17, so a senior in high school. Lucky job at the Emporia Public Library. It was before the internet. So we were using old school technology, ka-thunk with the little pockets and due date cards. And I was a mad alphabetizer at that point. Also had really great biceps from shelving books. That's a really physical job if nobody ever thought about it.
Lots of squats.
I know, right? When I started college, I also was paying for life and things. So I had a part-time job at the public library and also worked part-time at the university library at Emporia State and got to feel kind of the difference between public environment and academic. And public is definitely where my soul is at. So, I tried different industries, bookstores, a law firm, as I was trying to figure out what I wanted to be when I grew up, because I was going to write poetry and that's a lucrative career. But I kept finding myself back in libraries, specifically public libraries, and decided that really this is where I'm at. I'm a much more attuned and attentive reader than I am a writer. So, kind of keeping in that spectrum, but came back and went to Emporia State, got my master's degree, and I've held a number of positions. Ironically, I've never held the job classification as librarian.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
yeah.
Really?
Yeah. So I was in paraprofessional jobs until I became a branch manager. And I mean, at that point, I'm doing reference and reader services and collection development and things that librarians do, but I've never had that on my name badge. So just continue to work. And I think, for me, working in a public library, it is incredibly diverse. So many different experiences, can't make up the stories about what happens on a daily basis in a library. I think that it's the place for everybody in a community to be is the coolest thing in the world. What we want to do is increase access and availability of the things that can change people's lives. And that's what happens inside of books.
Awesome.
Awesome.
I feel like you're speaking with kindred spirits. And there's something that drives us all to become librarians and work in the library field. And I feel like we all kind of feel that way. So
since librarianship is so much more than reading and books, can you tell our listeners about what being a library director entails?
Yeah, I think what I'm discovering, I'm in my 7th month, but I have worked in library administration for the last 20 years. As a library director, really my vision has to be long-term. It needs to be 5, 10, 15 years out, and it's completely committed to making sure that the library, while I'm caring for the institution during this time in my career, that it has a life that exceeds anything that I'm able to do. So I try to really focus on the quality of service that we're delivering. In addition, my job is a lot about partnerships and cultivating relationships, because libraries don't do anything on their own. We're part of the collective impact of any community and helping improve the quality of life of our community members. So with that, and with the long tail and investments, comes fiscal responsibilities. And so paying attention to our city budget, because we're a department of the city of Wichita, but we also get funding through the generosity of donations that come through our friends support group, as well as our foundation, and grants and just opportunities that come up. I think part of my job as a library director is to ensure that the team of staff, who's like the greatest resource in any library, it's about the connections that we have with people and our knowledge and ability to navigate people to their information or reading needs. So it's all about making sure that the staff have the resources and the training and support and really the enthusiasm to keep them going and doing the great work that manifests on a day-to-day basis as we help people. I think in addition, library director, well, it is a large and incredible responsibility, and it weighs every single day because, I mean, there are still open questions out in the universe about why do libraries exist if we have Google. Part of my job is creating that story, that values story about how what would the world look like without its public library? What would reading look like? What would students' lives look like? What would families look like without their library? And it would be really sad. So part of my job is to create the stories that show the value of what we do on an individual basis.
I like that a lot. Well, I like it because it supports what we do.
Yeah.
So.
And that's the interesting thing about Google. Like, people don't really think of that being like actually a profit-driven ad-based search engine. And it's like, you're not going to get the best results. Like, have you tried buying concert tickets off Google? Like, it's
Oh, good luck.
Yeah.
You have to go like at least 5, even going to a local venue, like 5 results down before you even hit the local venue.
It is crazy.
How has librarianship changed your perception of the importance of reading or working in libraries, since you've never had that as a child?
Yeah, good point.
So working in libraries, it takes it out of being a personal experience as a reader, right? Every book I read, I have a unique, my own lens, my own like way of thinking. And what it does is it basically takes it out of the personal and puts it into the collective. I think there was something I read. I remember working at the Manisa Library. I think one of our staff members put in front of me like our policy manual. I was just starting and like get oriented to our policies. And I read the Freedom to Read statement, which is adopted from the American Library Association. And there are so many things within that statement that gave me goosebumps. One of which was like, this is a place where judgment doesn't happen. So anything you want to read is a good thing to read. And that lofty elitism of classics versus not pulp, I don't know. I mean, that was something that was like, I fully embraced that. And whatever anybody wants, we're able to help them navigate. I think even within that statement too, it talks about the power of reading as being essential to our democracy. And that is critical. That means all things need to be written so that they can be read, because that's embraced in our Constitution. I think the last thing that I want to kind of to tie that up to, part of the statement talks about like to counter a bad idea, you get a good idea, right? To approach a bad book, you get a good book. And so what this is saying to me is that there isn't any, that it's always a personal journey, essentially. Not every book is for every reader, but the answer and the anecdote for things that are challenging you or that you disagree with is to keep searching and keep reading.
I love
That's
that.
an awesome answer.
It's
Yeah.
great. But also for our listeners, if you are holding on to that book that is the classic literature that's very intimidating, that is another one of our categories. And you can stay tuned because we will have an episode planned where we'll dive into those books a little bit.
The classics.
The classics, the intimidating books. Jaime, now you've lived a few different places now, both here in Kansas. You came over from Washington State. How has the geography, if at all, changed what kind of books you like to read? Like, do you like to read things when you're living here? You're all, Willa Cather and John Steinbeck, whereas on the West Coast, I don't even know what you would read.
Or even like the weather, right? It rains a lot in the Pacific Northwest, and here, who knows what's going to happen?
Right. Yeah, I think, place is always like an important driver for like stories, right? I will say because I grew up in Kansas. And so I think a lot of the books that are written by Kansans about Kansas, I kind of grew up with them. So when I moved to the Pacific Northwest, it was a very different landscape. It looks prehistoric. I mean, just the green and the moss and the forest and the mountains and the rivers and the ocean.
I want to go to there.
Yes, please. But I think, that sense of place described in fiction, for example, David Guterson or Stephanie Meyer, The Twilight Series, right?
Good point.
Yeah. I think, it definitely creates like a sense of place for sure.
I love the books where the setting is almost an entire character in the book. So
I've learned the term psychogeography in relation to writing and like places and how that.
Oh, that's interesting.
It's like a thing that you see in like horror novel reviews a lot. Like we talk about the psychogeography. So.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I think one thing that I deliberately read books written by Pacific Northwest authors primarily to get a better grounding of history of the community and then also the culture. Even though we're in the same United States, Kansas is very different than, and so kind of understanding people a little bit more through stories creates empathy and knowledge. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're just getting started. Let's take a short break and here's some more from our library staff.
Hi, my name is Brian. I am a clerk at Westlink. One of my favorite books to reread is The Chosen by Chaim Potok, because the character development is great and the characters' devotion to the studies, each other, families, and religious beliefs is shown in great details. The struggle of these teenagers as they grow up is also inspiring. Chaim Potok is a very descriptive writer.
Hello, my name is Katrina. I'm the Youth Services Librarian at the Rockwell Branch Library. My favorite book to reread is Written in Red by Anne Bishop. Quite frankly, the whole Others series is worth rereading multiple times. No matter what mood you're in, there is something to enjoy in this well-laid-out urban fantasy that has humor, horror, a realistically developed romantic relationship that takes several books to really solidify, and, if you're in the mood for it, some subtle commentary on humanity's relationship with the natural world. Now, if you aren't in the mood for that, you can still really enjoy the satisfying way that shifters, vampires, and elementals make pretty much literal mincemeat out of some really bad people.
I'm Mark from the Evergreen Branch Library. The book I'm rereading this year is No Ordinary Time, Franklin and Eleanor Roosevelt, the Home Front in World War II, by Doris Kearns Goodwin. I read nonfiction for pleasure. This Pulitzer Prize-winning work is about one of the most revolutionary periods in our history. It's an intimate portrait of Eleanor and Franklin Roosevelt and of the period in time which a new modern America was born.
Okay, we're back. Let's talk more with Jaime Prothro about fostering a love of reading, because that's really important. And that's one of the reasons that we're here today, to talk about rereading our favorite books. So Jaime, do you ever find yourself rereading a book when the next one in a series is coming out, or like if you need to refresh yourself on that story? And if so, what series makes you do that?
I would have to say the Louise Penny Three Pines series.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness, you guys. I read the first one, Still Life. It wasn't that long ago, maybe 5 years ago, and just drank it in. And I know that I read it so fast that I didn't absorb all of it because I was just so enthralled, right? So I felt like I ate it really, really fast. But I think as the newer books were released, I did refresh myself a little bit more. Because rereading takes time, right? And there are so many books to read. As far as series goes, my approach is more to like kind of go back to the internet and the author's webpage and kind of just remind myself of where we were at, or where the characters kind of left off, or some of the struggles that they were having. I think often too, I rely on the newest book to give me that little bit of recap at the beginning. I think that's a really amazing author writing device to make sure that everybody stays in the flow.
And you want to talk about a book that has setting as a character, those Louise Penny books.
Definitely.
I really only read the one, but it stayed with me.
Have you ever found yourself giving a book a second chance? Like you hated it in school, but later revisited it and loved it?
Mm.
And how do your life experiences impact how you feel about certain books at certain times?
Yeah, I think probably the thing that I've read and given a second chance, it was actually something I read as an adult, and I had chosen it to do a book talk. And, I picked Wicked by Gregory Maguire. Okay. I was so wanting to love this. I wanted to love it so much that I committed to giving a book talk about it before I even read it. Like that was a lesson. Because as I was reading it, I couldn't get in. I tried to reposition my thoughts. I actually watched The Wizard of Oz thinking that would inspire my reading. And I got 3/4 of the way through it. And I actually chose to stop reading it and to confess to the people I was presenting to, I personally can't recommend this, but the concept of the book is so enthralling. I did come back to it a couple of years ago. I was telling my daughter about it. I was like, there's this musical and we watched it and really thinking that would kind of recharge. It's not for me. It's just
that's how I feel. I was wanting to read it after watching the musical, and I was like, "You're good."
I don't know if it was too high of expectations or what. Yeah.
So there's that Neil Gaiman quote about kids getting shamed for loving graphic novels instead of, real literature. So what do you think are some things that can prevent someone from developing a love of reading?
I think first thing that comes to mind is that parents aren't modeling reading to their kids. I think that's one of the most critical steps that any parent can take, whether they're actually reading or not. Just having the book out and the environment of reading and words can really set the stage. Obviously, reading with kids every night is really important for getting them ready for kindergarten too. But I think, this is something that hits me at a value center. There should never be any shame in anything that's read. There shouldn't. Every reading is reading, and that's stretching a muscle of your brain that helps you in all aspects of your life. I think in a lot of ways, I remember, so I always had my nose stuck in a book. And in fact, we'd go on camping trips when I was a kid, and I'd have a big stack of everything. And I would choose to sit and read in the forest rather than all the other things people were doing. And I got shamed a lot. I'm missing out on all of this wonderful nature experience. And I was like, oh no, I'm actually having this other experience, and this is where I'd prefer to be. I think, gosh, you know, honestly, something that might prevent someone from like developing a love of reading is just not even having access to books. There are a lot of people in our community who can't afford books in the home. I think even the idea of using a library and the potential of accruing overdue fines prevents people from reading. But more and more, I think it's really about how often do we see people reading in public? You see people walking down the street with their phone, right? Bumping into things. But what would it look like if our world was full of book readers? And I don't know, that's just part of the challenge I think that we have in the library is to create that community.
So that's a good point, though. I mean, how does this like creating an environment of readers change when a lot of us are reading on our devices, on our phones? Because I read whole entire books on my little iPhone. Yeah. So no product placement there. But how does that change building this, world of readers?
I think it expands it quite a bit. That you can have countless books on your device, right? Means that the weight of physical books isn't really pressure. Sorry, that was unintended.
Are there any books out there that everyone is down on, but you absolutely love?
I was incredibly ashamed to admit this, but I'm going to share it proudly today. I love British chick lit. Like,
example.
Katie Ford as an author, her entire body of work, they're the same book, different characters, slightly different space. And why am I reading a book that's so similar? It's because it's lovely and because it tastes like candy. And because I experience the ebb and flow of love in a moment between two people, and they have a spark and then they conflict and then they come back together. And usually in these books, there's some sort of like do-it-yourself element, like home being rehabbed or, business being built or something. And so kind of combining that career plus love and romance plus British accents and culture, it's delightful. It's pure escapism, but yeah.
Are you listening to these or are you reading them?
I usually read them. Yeah.
You said accents, so I didn't know if like.
Is your reading voice changed? Do you do accents when you? Oh, wow.
I mean, just like you're picturing what people look like physically, right? What does their voice sound like?
That's awesome. That's really an imaginative way to read. I don't even think I do that.
So is there an author that you read when you were a kid that you would credit with shaping your young, developing mind?
I would probably point to the Beat writers. When I discovered them, like a whole slew of culture and insights and art like opened up to me. And I think I read Kerouac on the road when I was maybe a sophomore in high school. I had no concept that this could be happening. And I think the idea too of unpolished writing was really a new something, because everything ought to be perfect when it's in print, right? And that these writers were intentionally creating jazz through writing. It was an incredible influence. So like Kerouac and Kesey and Bukowski, I think that stream of consciousness was something that really, it was really appealing to me as a different type of format. And I mean, just even the vocabulary, I dig it. They're pretty cool cats. Yeah.
I liked it in college because it was like with Bukowski, it's like a big, like long name and you think it's going to be really hard to read, but it's like really approachable. And like, it's like kind of what got me into more like adult reading and stuff. So awesome. I have a soft spot for like people like him and Burroughs. And
I think I'm really grateful too that my parents never really, they were always interested in what I was reading, but they weren't barriers, or they've never really prevented me from reading. So I probably read some things beyond my years, but I think that's what rereading's all about, right? Is to catch it at different times in your life and see how life experience creates some perspective.
Absolutely. And that's a great segue as we take another short break so we can hear some more recommendations from our library staff. But then when we come back, we want to dive into that idea of rereading our favorites.
Hi, my name's Tammy Penland. I'm the support service manager for the library. My favorite book to reread is entitled Tammy Out of Time by Sid Ricketts Sumner. This book is set post-Civil War, World War II. It is a heartwarming story of a young girl being raised on the Mississippi River in a houseboat by her grandfather, who's a preacher and also known for his corn liquor. The grandfather goes to jail and she goes to live with a wealthy family while her grandfather serves his time. Her eyes are open to modern conveniences while staying with his family. Very enjoyable.
Hey, my name is Janelle Mercer, and I'm a technology trainer at the Advanced Learning Library. My favorite book to reread or listen to is Call Your Daughter Home by Deb Spera. The story about how three strong women's lives intertwined in the 1920s South is fantastic. This is one I would recommend listening to if you can get a chance. It is narrated by 3 different narrators, and the narrators add so much more to the story.
Those sound like really awesome reads. Thanks to library staff for recommending those. And you're listening to Read, Return, Repeat, and we're here with Jaime Prothro, Director of Wichita Public Library Systems. Okay, question of the hour. Why do you think we love to reread books? What qualities lend themselves to a good reread?
My gosh, countless reasons why people reread books. Go back to time and place. That was appealing. I think books at times create like a safety for us. That setting or those characters or the scenario could be a place that gives us like calm or comfort. So I think that as a tool and a resource for anxiety or fear might be a really good thing to do to reread a book. Definitely creates new experiences. And I think rereading books at different periods in your life will probably surface a number of insights that you may not have had the first or second time that you've read it. I will say that rereading also helps with the comprehension of what's going on. So for me, I know I gravitate to stories. Give me a story any day, fiction. When I'm reading nonfiction, though, I tend to read it maybe 3 times if it's something that I'm really wanting to like embed in my brain. Like the first time I'm just reading it straight up, just for the experience. The second time I'm really digging deeper. There are likely a lot of vocabulary words and concepts that I'm wanting to. And then the third time I'm reading it again for that kind of piecing together the things that I thought and the things that I'm thinking now to really solidify the concepts or the new learning. I think in some ways, rereading a book when a movie's out, that is such a popular way of getting some circulations at your public library. But I will say that film adaptations always compels people to read forward. I remember, when Misery came out as a movie, I was maybe middle school, begged my dad to take me. He did. I'd never read Stephen King. And I had to read that book. I had to know more about what was happening. I had to understand this crazy woman a little bit more. I think another reason people tend to reread is probably because the author stopped writing, whether they passed or whether they moved into a different career. But that was like the last. Their body of work isn't continuing to grow. And so if they're a beloved author, going back and rereading is a good call.
Those are all great reasons to reread a book. So, I mean, what books then do you like to reread? What are on your top list?
My top lists of rereads, probably more poetry from cover to cover. I think Mary Oliver's poems are something that I can read every single day, the same poem, and still get something remarkable out of them. Another book that I've reread a handful of times, it's a fiction book by Nicole Krauss called The History of Love. The format on it was so intriguing because it's past and present. It's two characters with the same name at different points in history, and their lives are being woven together by this book that a Polish immigrant wrote before he had to leave Europe because of the war. And the book that he wrote was the origin of how love came to exist.
That sounds awesome.
And he wrote it as a love story to his Alma. So I just, there are just moments in that book that made me weep like I've never experienced before. She's an incredible writer. I think also The Color Purple by Alice Walker. There's just so much in that rereading it is something that I do every maybe like 5 or 6 years. I seem to pick it up and need to get back into it. The idea, I mean, even within that about, just the connections that sisters can have, even from a distance, the struggles that African-American women especially have experienced. I think, unfortunately, it's still a story that people are experiencing. But I think the way that Alice Walker just tells that tale, it's provocative. It seems new to me every time I read it. And I pick up different elements each time.
So actually that's going to probably be my book that intimidates you. I tried to read it. I'm going to give something away here, but for The Year You Were Born, because a couple of years ago, that was one of our categories. And I still haven't read it because I'm just like, I know it's going to be heavy in places and I don't want to have to read something that makes me sad, but it's still really important to read those stories. I mean, I just for any number of reasons. So anyway, that's, which is funny because it's your reread and it's my intimidating book.
I think it's funny you bring up like crying because like my reread is Grant Morrison's All-Star Superman graphic novel. Okay. And it's like, first of all, I'm biased because I'm a transplant to Kansas like Superman. So I have like, he's one of my favorite superheroes because of that. And Grant Morrison's my favorite writer. But it's like a story about Superman dealing with his own mortality. And as I get older, I read it. And like, I start crying. It's like a harder read, but I still reread it. Because as I get older, I relate to it more because it's like, and it's so that, Did you have a favorite reread?
So I used to reread Confederacy of Dunces like every few years because I would always get something new out of it. And so I've listened to it, I've read it. And then I read it again. And so that's always one, but it's been several years now since I've reread that one. And then just because of the nature of my work, I've reread Station 11. I can't even tell you how many times. And I love that book. I know it was our big read a few years ago, and I fangirled all over Emily St. John Mandel for the time that she was here. And that was a really wonderful experience for me. So
that actually leads into our next question because I read Station 11, liked the book a lot, did not like the show.
Okay, we can have that be a different podcast episode.
Into that. But actually, I was going to ask you: have you ever reread a book after it was made into a movie or TV show, just to see how closely it followed or deviated from the original story? If so, which book or movie was it, and did it change your original perspective on the book?
The example that comes to mind is Twilight.
I knew you were going to say that. I don't know how.
Like, the movie was so boring. I'm sorry. I was watching it and I was like, what's going to happen? This is supposed to be all-encompassing love. It's there, but what's happening? And so I was like, surely there's more story that just didn't, because that book is really thick. And I mean, like, I go into the stacks of books for a while with teens and like be surprised if vampires didn't bite me. It was so prevalent in publishing at that point. So just reading it, and it's a cultural phenomena, but the book didn't give me any more insights, but I did choose to go down that path.
Twilight, that cultural phenomenon. I would say that's probably the the way to describe it. Okay, so we talked a little bit about audio. Maybe I talked a little bit about audio. I guess it came up in one of our other questions, but have you ever, like, when you're rereading a book, but then you listen to it on audio for your second, or, vice versa? And how does that format difference change your appreciation of the book?
This may seem weird, but like, as I'm reading physical formats, my eyes really go fast over dialogue. I mean, just like, I'm just reading fast and I'm trying to, kind of keep going. What's next? I think when I listen, though, I cue into more of literally what people are saying in the parentheses of dialogue. So that's something that kind of calls out to me. I think also with the audio, and I know a lot of people have the same experience, it's always dependent on the narrator. And I will say, like Dan Brown's book, The Boys in the Boat.
Okay.
It's about the UW rowing team back in like the 30s with the German Olympics. They actually won the race in Germany. It was just right before World War II. And I think that one was it was cool because there were a number of like places in Washington State, for example, that I'd only read. And so I had this like way of pronouncing it based on the word spelling. And then when he read it, I was like, oh, it's not Puyallup, it's Puyallup or Phaedra, and just I'm trying to, just hearing things pronounced differently kind of expands, my understanding of different words too.
Absolutely.
I had that happen with Dune because I knew how the words were the names of everything in Dune were supposed to be said. Had no idea how to write it at all. And I think that's like,
because you listened to it and then you read it.
Dune, and then I was like, I don't know how to and then Duncan, Idaho was just Duncan, Idaho. His name was Duncan in the state Idaho. That was like, because I thought it was going to be like written weird, but it was not. It was just Duncan in Idaho.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. Like when you're talking with people too, and they pronounce a word and it's a little bit mispronounced and you just realize that, they've read it. I think that's so cool. And just practicing new words, even if you miss the mark with pronunciation. It's kind of cool when that happens.
Well, now you can just kind of listen to it on the search. And I've done that before. I'm like, how do you pronounce it? I'm going to just listen to it.
That's so, yeah. Even with the e-reads, there's so many different things. So you have this lifetime working career in libraries. You've assumed that libraries are your primary source for books.
Oh, yeah.
But one question, what makes you buy a book?
Honestly, at this point, the books that I buy are either cookbooks.
Yeah.
Or for my little free library.
Okay.
I just, if I buy a book, I am actually assured not to read it. Like for some reason, just the amount of time that I've worked in libraries, it's like the due date is my deadline. I've got it, death by due dates. But I think, cookbooks, my collection's growing.
So it's funny you say that. I think I'm the same way. Like I will buy books because say the author is in town and I want to have a signed copy or something. And then they just kind of sit there because I don't have anything like any pressures to finish it.
I have a lot of signed books I'm never going to read.
I'm going to get to them.
Sorry,
they're there.
David
I'm going to do it. I know. I have David Sedaris too.
Everyone has a David Sedaris when they haven't read that sign with a joke in it.
Oh, right. Yeah. I'm not going to say that on podcast, but I got a David Sedaris joke.
Yeah.
Okay. Final question. You're on a deserted island. You can have 3 books. Which ones are you taking with you and figuring out how to preserve in that climate?
This is a harsh question.
I know. That's why it's evil. Last one.
It's horror, in fact. Okay. So probably there are 3 books that I've talked about in this podcast that I would bring with me. I would bring Louise Penny, her first book, Still Life. I think that just the place and space and characters and magic. I mean, it's like you exist in a snow globe for a little bit, right?
I can see that.
Yeah.
I think and if you're on an island, it's hot. The History of Love would be the second one that I would preserve, again, because it's one that I keep going back to, and it rocked my world, and it keeps rocking my world. And then I would bring likely a collection of poems, and I was struggling between a couple of different poets, but I think I would choose Mary Oliver.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any particular collection?
Probably her collected work, so I could have the thickest variety,
sure.
and most of them. Mm-hmm.
It's not cheating.
Take an anthology. Yeah. Thank you so much for answering your questions,
you so much.
Jaime. It's not every day you get to interview the big boss.
Oh.
So, and we're going to go ahead and finish up this episode with, you guessed it, more staff recommendations. So take it away.
Hi, my name is Jenny Laheka, and I'm a youth services librarian at the Advanced Learning Library. My favorite book to reread is Matilda by Roald Dahl because of the inspiring notion that stories can transport us to new worlds. We can also learn much from the resilience of Matilda, as well as the lasting impact of compassionate teachers like Miss Honey.
Hi, my name is Michelle Inke. I am the local history librarian at the Advanced Learning Library. My favorite book to reread is Wichita Century, a pictorial history of Wichita, Kansas, which was published for the city's 100th anniversary in 1970. I enjoy rereading this book for it provides a great overview of the city's history, divided into decades. And best of all, there are many great photographs depicting the development of the community.
My name is Cindy Bailey. I'm a tech training manager librarian at the Advanced Learning Library. My favorite book to reread is Gone with the Wind by Margaret Mitchell. I just love it because I love historical fiction. I love the characters, and it has such a rich story that continues to engage me every time I see the movie. And I have read the book and just love it.
Wow, so many great recommendations in today's episode. And I just gotta say, it was so fun putting this whole episode together. A list of the books discussed can be found in the accompanying show notes. And to request any of those books, visit wichitalibrary.org or call us at 316-261-8500.
As we end today's episode, we'll leave you with a short story submitted from the community. This is one of the many short stories and poems you can get from one of our short story dispensers located at Reverie Roasters Coffee Shop, Evergreen Community Library, and the Eisenhower Airport. And if you have a short story under 8,000 characters to submit, you can visit wichitalibrary.org/short-story.
Hanna by Joseph Arthur. Joseph, wait up! That is Hanna. We're both in the same English literature class on the Beat Generation. I don't know why she insists on calling me Joseph, even though it is my given name, and I like it better than Joe, and the way she pronounces it makes me feel important when really I'm not. I think her accent has something to do with living in Minnesota or Wisconsin before moving here to Northern Virginia just across the Potomac River from Washington, D.C. I like to call the river the Big Muddy because it doesn't flow as much as oozes along rocks and along the shoreline. Fortunately, or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, it's impossible to miss Hanna. She's a bit clumsy and loud. For example, right now she's fighting with the school's exit door. Her book bag is currently caught on the door handle, making it squeak and rattle as she wrestles to free herself from it. She finally prevails and once again begins calling me to wait. The look on her face is strong and determined. She's undaunted and fierce when met with adversity and challenges and continues toward me. Hanna is a force unto herself, I think to myself. I just wish she knew it. Joseph, calls Hanna as she nears my side. I pretend not to hear her. I know exactly what is on her mind. I pick up the pace, but she keeps a steady gait and reaches me before I make my intended target. A single row of buses form a line in front of our school, waiting for the crush of students and the youthful energy they will bring. Carnage, I think to myself. Bus drivers have it rough. What'd you get on your paper? She grabs my peachy and paper from my hand as I loosen my grip. Yep, right there it is, she says. Another A+ for you and A- for me. I work hard on my papers and this is all I get, she shouts. She shakes it above her head and yells rats as she prepares to leave. Hanna's not a fan of cursing. She says her father does it enough for the two of them. I try to make her feel better by telling her maybe she's not a fan of Kerouac's On the Road. A lot of people say his other stuff is much better. I conjure the Dharma Bums or Big Sur in my mind. She's not buying it. I cannot help but feel a bit sorry for Hanna. Her dad, Mac, is a biker who spends his days tattooing other bikers or the occasional suit and tie guy who comes into his shop, locked in a downward spiral of midlife crisis. Hanna joins him in his work. They live in a small apartment above the shop. It's not great, but I know how much Mac cares for Hanna, and he would give her more if he could. However, he tells it like it is. I belong to a biker gang, and that's how it is. He shrugs when he says it and offers no apology. Not exactly an ink master with a passion for his work. To Mac, a tattoo is nothing more than a design on human canvas. But to Hanna, tattoos are much more. They are symbols that could reflect the heart and soul of those who get them. Hanna often educates me on how special putting ink to skin is. For example, she'll say, in Samoan culture, tattoos were a rite of passage for men, a sort of coming out, leaving childhood and becoming a man. They would lay there for an entire day while others poked a dye under their skin. Sounds like a painful process, I say. Hanna doesn't acknowledge my words. Hawaiian culture is no different. To Native Hawaiians, tattoos are sacred, something they take with them into the afterlife, says Hanna. I love watching her talk about the tattoos she has done. Her face grows animated and full of joy. She is a great artist. You can see the utter delight she feels as she talks about them. And then, just as suddenly, her face turns serious. Tattoos are downright spiritual, Joseph. She makes sure to lock eyes with me as she says it, but goes quiet and ponders that less-than-perfect grade from English class. The Beats, with their poetry and writing and jazz, would understand my disappointment, she says. I bet they would never get an A-. She chuckles a bit while saying it. And to that I say, they wouldn't give a darn if they did or didn't. They simply followed their passion. I conjure the Dharma Bums or Big Sur in my mind. I can tell she isn't buying it. She looks sad and downhearted and sullen and ready to give up. This bothers me because Hanna is more than just a friend, and I want life to be more than fair to her. I want her life to be wonderful and filled with good things day after day, even if the world is never that way. She deserves better, and I know it. All I can do is be that nobody that loves Hanna. See you tomorrow, says Hanna as she stomps off towards home, braided hair and waist-length ponytails swaying with each step, home to the apartment above the tattoo parlor and the real work that awaits her there.
Thank you for that story. Thank you to Jaime Prothro for taking our questions, and to each member of the staff that submitted a rereading recommendation. Listen each month for more category-specific recommendations.
To participate in the Read ICT Reading Challenge, please visit wichitalibrary.org/readict. Stay connected with other Read ICT participants on the Read ICT Challenge Facebook page. Find out what's trending near you, post book reviews, look for local and virtual events, and share book humor with like-minded folks. To join the group, search #ReadICTChallenge on Facebook and click Join.
You can follow this podcast through the Anchor app or stream episodes on whatever platform you listen to podcasts. If you like what you heard today, be sure to subscribe and share with all your friends.
This has been a production of the Wichita Public Library, and a big thanks goes out to our production crew and podcast team.